Okay, today we are starting off with The Five Love Languages: How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate by Gary Chapman. We'll be covering kind of an overview of the book today, as well as chapter one. The concepts, your highest level concept of the book is that there are five different ways that love is expressed and received in an intimate relationship, and using the one that is most recognized by your spouse is the most efficient and effective way of showing love, because the message sent and message received by individuals are not always the same. It's important to express love in a way that can be received well by your partner. So that's kind of the essence of the book overall. So, diving into chapter one, of course, Gary starts off by kind of an introduction with him on an airline flight, introducing himself to a man and saying that he's a marriage counselor. And the man asks him, where does the love go after the marriage? Basically, goes through, explains his personal life experience of having gone through three marriages, and basically, in all three cases, he thought things were great. He thought things were really compatible with the spouses they chose until after the marriage, and they were different lengths of time, but after time, kind of the love faded, and so Gary Chapman uses that as kind of an intro to say, hey, this is a real challenge that many people face. They love someone that they've picked to marry. They really want to create a successful relationship with them, but then they end up with kind of the love fading over time. And so then he introduces the concepts of these love languages. And he does that by explaining just kind of some of the core concepts of language itself, and the whole idea that there are different languages spoken around the world. And uh, no matter how sincere your intent is, no matter how much you want to communicate, you want to effectively collaborate with another person, if they speak a different language, your communication at best is going to be awkward. It's going to be difficult. One of the great ways that we show that someone else is important to us, that we show we care about someone if they speak a different language, speaking of traditional languages, is by learning their language. Because I've been talking to you here in English for a few minutes, and I could switch into Spanish and explain some beautiful concepts to you. Que puedo explicar qué tan bonita es afuera y qué bella es este día y qué importante es que estamos hablando aquí juntos. But if you don't speak Spanish, that's not helpful at all. It doesn't matter how wonderful or beautiful the thing that I was saying to you is, if and no matter how sincere my intent is, if you don't speak Spanish, me speaking to you in Spanish doesn't help. And so one of the ways that we show appreciation for other people, that we show that we really, really care about them, whether it's on a personal level, professional level, if they happen to speak another language, is to learn their language. Even just a little bit of trying to learn someone else's language, trying to connect with them, shows them you consider them important. And in the same way, it goes with these five languages that he covers in this book. The idea is you have a primary language that you grew up with, that you're familiar with, and every little bit of you trying to learn your partner's primary love language, even though it's different than your own, learning that language is going to have so much more positive effect in strengthening your relationship with them than you just always using the language you're most familiar with if that doesn't happen to be theirs. And again, no matter how sincere your intent is, no matter how open your heart is, that it's actually learning the language spoken by the other person that makes the difference as far as message received. Increases the probability that your message sent, message received truly communicates your intent without just being awkward. I assume you've probably seen people who don't speak the same language. And let's say that, I'm talking to someone who speaks Italian, and me speaking louder and enunciating my words doesn't help. If they don't speak English, they don't speak English. It's the same way. And so we'll get in future videos into more detail as to what those specific love languages are. But the point is, we need to learn to speak the love language of those that we're trying to communicate to, particularly when we're talking to our intimate partner, so that we can get the message across and help them understand. And he also mentions the healthy versus unhealthy dialects in terms of love. If a person grew up in a healthy environment, that they kind of have a healthy way of expressing love in their primary language. Whereas if they struggle to get love, they still have primary love languages, but their dialect, the specific ways it's manifested, will be a little bit different. We'll see that more as we go throughout the book. That's kind of the essence of what's happening in chapter 1 of the book. But I wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of tie this into gospel concepts, as I said I would. So if we look at Genesis chapter 11, it said, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech. So this is prior to the Tower of Babel, and everybody has one unified language. Jumping down to verse 6, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, speaking of building the tower, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So the reason why I wanted to kind of dig in on that point there of that nothing will be restrained from them is to help you understand as you're looking to better express love in the language your partner understands, how powerful this is in your relationship, but also in your life. Because when you have open communication, when you can express love and they can receive love, just it opens up so many more things that you can do together. Your life can be so much more powerful, so much more engaging because you're on the same page. You feel safe with each other. You're not questioning each other. And so it just opens up a world of power. As it says there, nothing that they have imagined to do will be restrained from them. And so we, of course, in Genesis, in the next few verses, we see that God did confound the language and scattered the people all over the world. And that's how we are where we are today, that there are many different languages around the world. And so understanding that, as strange as it may be, as difficult as it may be, diversity of language is part of God's plan. And I believe that applies also to diversity of language in terms of love, these love languages that Gary Chapman is talking about, that it's intentional that there is a diversity, that things are different because of the opportunities it gives us to learn and to grow. Now, obviously, as with many other things in life, we can say, well, I mean, if this confusion comes from God, then can I trust him? Can I work with him? The thing that I wanted to kind of key in there is that there was one group that left from the Tower of Babel and came over to the American continent. But before they left, they actually prayed to not be confounded. There was this man named Jared and his brother. It says, and it came to pass that the brother of Jared did cry unto the Lord, and the Lord had compassion on Jared. Therefore he did not confound the language of Jared, and Jared and his brother were not confounded. Then Jared said to his brother, cry again unto the Lord, and it may be that he will turn away his anger from those who are our friends, and confound not their language. And it came to pass that the brother of Jared did cry unto the Lord, and the Lord had compassion on their friends and their families also, and they were not confounded. So I wanted to kind of bring in that piece because you can see, well, I mean, if there's this confusion with God giving kind of a greater challenge, confounding language, spreading the people throughout the world, but those who trusted God, who asked to not be confounded, were not confounded. And so keep that in mind in terms of your marriage relationship, the importance of your connection, to remember to ask for the Lord's help. Because yes, it can be difficult communicating with your spouse when their love language is different than their own. But with the Lord's help, he can help you that the net result of your communication is not being confounded. Now, that's not to say that you don't need to learn their love language, because you do need to learn their love language. Again, it's an interesting opportunity to prove how much you care about them, to prove your love by learning their love language. Trust the Lord as you do it. You can pray to the Lord for help so that as you begin to learn their love language, particularly if it's foreign to you, that you can really start understanding through the guidance from God as to what things you can specifically do, maybe some of the dialects, if you will, of their love language and how you can help them. So that's chapter 1, and I look forward to seeing you in the review of chapter 2.